Okay, everybody, good noon for those of you on the East Coast, and for those of you in Central Time or on the west side of this country, good morning. Happy Friday. I know it might be a strange Memorial Day weekend coming up, but I hope that it will be a beautiful and restorative one. Also hope that you are able to spend it with your loved ones, with your family, and take some time to decompress after a few months that have been unprecedented and possibly very stressful. Thank you very much for spending your morning or your afternoon with me. This was a 20-minute webinar on the truth about chemical disinfectants, a dive into why the chemical disinfection solution may not be the best solution for your facility. Let's get into it. So my name is Dan Litvin. I am the Director of Development at Pure UVC. There I'm responsible for marketing, educational initiatives, just like this one, and internal systems. My bachelor's in electrical engineering from Rutgers University is part of the reason why I weasel my way into some of those systems. Also because I get the chance to communicate with people like you. I get the opportunity to pass on to engineering and research and development what we need to provide the best possible solution for end users. So this is something that our governor, Phil Murphy, here in New Jersey, spoke about a few weeks ago, and this was the 6-step roadmap back to reopening the economy. Now, many of these stages we have no control over, but stage 5, responsible economic restart, is a place where we can actively alter our ability to reopen our facilities. So according to this principle 5, executing a responsible economic restart, plan for a methodical and strategic return to work based on level of disease transmission risk and essential classification. So if you're on this call, there is a very good chance that you are an essential business or a very nearly essential business. So you'll be at one of those early stages of being authorized to reopen. Now, the second side here is level of disease transmission risk. So it's important to do our best to mitigate transmission risk of diseases, in this case, coronavirus. Now, this was a chart that was provided, and where we want to be is the top left, the essential and low risk. Again, whether it's essential or non-essential, there is only so much that can be done, but between low and high risk, there are many opportunities to go and mitigate risk. This is going to be one discussion in terms of daily disinfection. We also have other webinars where we talk about the future of workspaces and other technologies that'll be supportive to this low risk status. But let's continue on in terms of disinfection. So, as per the CDC, it is critical to clean and disinfect frequently touched surfaces daily. So we need daily disinfection. It used to be the case where we can get by with a daily cleaning. We'll talk about the difference between the two in a moment, but now we need to ensure there is a daily disinfection so that we could protect our facilities. So then there becomes a question, is how clean is clean? Why do we need daily disinfection? So first we have pathogens that are spread through respiratory droplets. So people enter the facilities, they walk through the facilities, they cough, they sneeze, they speak, they breathe, and that's going to emit these particles. The coronavirus can live up to some surfaces for up to 9 days. The more that this exists on different surfaces in a viable form, the more of a risk of catching this disease. So those contaminated surfaces pose an infection hazard, and some bacteria, so when we're getting past the coronavirus itself, can remain infectious outside the body for months. So there is a, let's say, silver lining to this time right now, where there is the opportunity to bring in measures to offer protection to our facilities occupants. Whether you're a school and you're talking about your staff, your students, and your educators, or you're in office and you're speaking about your employees and your guests and potential clients. So let's just do a quick little terminology. I want to go and make clear the difference between these two terms because I will be using them intentionally through the rest of this webinar. So there's cleaning, and cleaning is your run-of-the-mill, making sure that things look good. So it removes germs, dirt, and impurities from surfaces or objects. Most often, what it does is it moves them. It removes them. So those germs that are on your surfaces are now knocked down onto the floor or somewhere else. Disinfection, on the other hand, kills germs on surfaces or objects. So it's disinfection that is going to be what you need for treating different bacteria, viruses, mold spores, and other pathogens. So the typical means of disinfection at this point is going to be chemical disinfectants. You use these at home, you use them in your facility. And there's a whole slew of them. Each of them could have a whole webinar on itself. Instead of going into a deep dive on these different disinfectants, we are lumping them together. What we are going to be talking about today is the commonly used disinfectants in facilities. So what is said is not just one very hyper-specific disinfectant, but it is those ones that you use on a normal basis. And what are some of the issues with these chemical disinfectants? So the three that we'll explore today are safety, that is the highest priority right there, efficacy, and cost. And before we get into, let's say, some of the dangers here, I want to go and talk about a solution right off the bat so you know where this is going. So there will be required continued safe cleaning practices. Now we know the difference between those two. We recommend widespread daily disinfection via a properly designed UVC solution. We'll talk about that in a bit. And we are not against chemical disinfectants. There is a use for them. What facilities will need going forward is a comprehensive system. There's going to have to be a comprehensive plan in order to make sure these facilities are protected. So chemical disinfectants will be needed for spot cleaning to get into some areas that are hard to get into. They're going to be required for buildup of grime or things that need a little bit more of a sandpaper touch to them. And they'll be needed to places where the light can't access. So let's say inside closets, behind shelves, things like that. So let's get back in. So chemical disinfection health dangers. These are labels from common disinfectants. So if you go to your local Home Depot, Target, or Walmart, and you look at your disinfectants, this is what you will be seeing. Now, for many years, we didn't make any other type of decision of what we use for disinfectants. We just took it as gospel that chemical disinfection was the way. But just because it is commonly used, it doesn't mean it's the best solution, and it doesn't mean it's fully safe. These are some excerpts taken from articles that were pulled over the last few weeks from different publications across the nation. March, April, and May have seen record calls to poison control because people are getting sick from using the disinfectants, from either not using them properly or from overusing them. And what are some of these health dangers that people are all calling about? So if there's ingestion, so it's either direct, so that might be for whatever reason, drinking some of these cleaning fluids, or disinfectant fluids, or indirect. So that might mean touching a surface that was recently cleaned and then putting your hand in your mouth. That might mean having chopping vegetables on a surface that was recently disinfected and then putting that on your salad and eating that. That might mean being exposed to some fresh fumes or residue, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. So ingestion can cause damage to organs. That includes a heart, liver, brain, kidneys, stomach, skin. To the nerves, could cause blood problems, drowsiness, unconsciousness, and in cases, unfortunately, mortality. The fumes and residue, so when you walk into a space that was recently cleaned, You might have experienced this. It could cause mild irritation. It could get all the way to brain damage. So things that are included: dizziness, headaches, nausea, fatigue, lung damage, irritation to the ears, nose, throat, asthma. There's been studies that show that people that use disinfectants on a regular basis, chemical disinfectants, so let's say most of our facility crews, are statistically at a significantly higher risk of lung cancer due to that normal daily exposure. That said, most of those chemical disinfectants that are used are considered to be carcinogenic. They are considered to be cancer causing. Continuing on, if you are a facility that has daycare, if you're a facility that might be an elementary school or a facility that has young children, kids are at a higher risk of all of these conditions. They don't have the, quite literally the thick skin that adults have, and they don't have the immunity built up in order to withstand some of this damage. As mentioned before, the facility teams tend to be in the front line. So they tend to get sick from daily use of these disinfectants. But in addition to that, they tend to be in the front line of these places that are swarming with all these disease-forming pathogens. They go into a space, they have to clean, they have to disinfect, and in the meantime, they're the ones who are getting their face close to these surfaces or in the air that is infected. And lack of training can cause the creation of toxic chemicals, such as the mixing of bleach with essentially any other cleaner that can cause a fume that is highly toxic. Efficacy. So, as was mentioned by the CDC, daily disinfection is required. Now, to do comprehensive disinfection, because comprehensive facility-wide disinfection is required, because if you have one room that's not disinfected, you have people walking into that room and then walking through the rest of the facility, all of a sudden, once again, the same problem exists, that the disease, those pathogens have spread. So there needs to be facility-wide disinfection. Now, for that to be done manually through people using chemical disinfectants, that's going to require many hours. It's going to require a huge team, and it's going to require a great deal of equipment to do. Most likely, that is not going to be feasible or possible. The other thing that exists too is that most disinfectant solutions apply only to surfaces, and many diseases are airborne, so they won't be affected by chemical disinfectants. If you are trying to do that comprehensive solution, it's going to often require some degree of fumigation, and fumigation is going to be disruptive to operations. It usually requires that the room remain empty for at least 24 hours. It tends to be dangerous because the chemicals used are much more toxic and heavy duty, and it's expensive. It requires either getting outside contractors to come in on a regular basis or expensive equipment to do. So that said, it is not a viable solution. It's not a viable even weekly solution, much less a daily solution. In addition, talking about efficacy, many chemical agents are not sporicidal. Spores have a very hard outer shell that UV light is able to penetrate through, but a lot of these chemical disinfectants aren't able to get to. So that said, the allergies, the headaches, the asthma that spores cause won't be treated. And finally, there needs to be the proper use for these disinfectants. Most have 10 to 15 minute wet times, meaning that they have to be on the surface, not cleaned, not dried off for 10 to 15 minutes to get that 99.99% disinfection. A lot of times that doesn't happen. And if it does happen, that's going to cause a buildup of fumes. And finally, talk about cost. So this is a little bit of a calculation I was put together using some prices from commercial cleaning contractors. This is on the lower end. So this is a conservative estimate. Most likely the actual cost is going to be higher. So assuming 7 cents per square foot, a standard 800 square foot room will cost $56 per manual cleaning / light disinfection. So this is not a comprehensive disinfection, not airborne material, not a deep disinfection. Let's say that we're talking about a school, for example, and let's say that disinfection is only done after days of school. So that's 180 days at $56 per disinfection is going to cost a little bit more than $10,000 per classroom. This does not include weekends, this does not include the summer, and this does not include heavy-duty disinfection. So getting back to the solution. So again, continued safe cleaning practices will be required. UV light is not going to magically pull the papers that have fallen on the ground or dust for you. But in order to keep the facility crew safe, a brief disinfection via UV can be done even before cleaning practices are done. So cleaning practices, UVC disinfection, and then on a weekly or even monthly or bi-weekly basis, chemical disinfection as spot cleaning. So UV disinfection is something that has been used for a while and is being heavily utilized now in the States. It's been used across the world for more than 100 years. In fact, the first major application of its use was in Marseille, France in 1910 in a water treatment facility. Now, in the age of coronavirus, it is being used more and more. In fact, there is a worldwide shortage of UV materials because our neighbors in Asia and in Europe are using this technology so heavily. The movement is starting to come to the USA. There are different applications. We are very, very proud to offer a viable, a budget-friendly, and a future-proof facility-wide solution. But just to say that, this is a movement, so you won't be the crazy people implementing this. A few examples of how it's being used. So if you look at the top left, this is the New York City MTA, the Metro Transit Authority. So this is one of the subways. Being 30 minutes outside of New York City, I know how gross these subway cars tend to be now in the time of coronavirus. They are terrifying places to be. So what they're doing is they're implementing portable UV treatment solutions. So they shut down the car, put in these units, disinfect, and then making sure that the cars are clean. Top right, this is a Whole Foods. Amazon is prototyping UV robots to clean the floors and the aisles. Bottom left is Hyundai prototype car, where there'll be UV light to help disinfect the inside of the car between drivers. And the bottom right is another prototype. Notice I keep saying prototype here because there are new applications of this old technology. So bottom right, prototype by Boeing, and that is using UV in airplane bathrooms, which I'm very excited for that technology because that is another gross place, and I'm not even a germaphobe. All right, so benefits of utilizing UVC light. So efficacy, safety, workplace friendly, future-proof, less waste, and affordable. Efficacy, it gets that same third-degree logarithmic deduction of germs, 99.99% of exposed pathogens. Now, this isn't just surface, it's surface and airborne. Safety. A properly configured system is incredibly safe because no one will ever be under the light. That is the system that we offer. If you're purchasing the system from someone else, there isn't really another system that we've found like this. But if you are, please, 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 please do your research. Make sure that there are considerable safety measures in place. We can talk more about that in a little bit, or you can ask a Q&A. I'd be happy to tell you more about that. Workplace friendly. It allows for daily comprehensive disinfection. As we mentioned before, this would be impossible through manpower and through finances otherwise. Future-proof. UVC light disinfects against viruses, bacteria, and mold. This means that after coronavirus is over, when the next seasonal flu comes, this solution will work. When the common cold is coming, this solution will work. When the next epidemic comes, this solution will work. And if there is another pandemic in the future, and hopefully there isn't because we're implementing safety measures like this, but if there is, this solution will work. There is less waste. So you won't have to change a bulb for at earliest 5 or 6 years, more likely 7, 8, or 9 years of life. If you're using chemical disinfectants, there's rags, there's bottles and other material that you have to toss away on a regular basis, and they are containing, chemical toxic material right on them that needs to be tossed away in the proper way. And finally, affordable. You are going to be able to implement one of these systems for a fraction of what it would cost to disinfect that room in a year's basis. So that means that you get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years for a fifth or a quarter of the price of 1 year. Absolutely beautiful long-term investment there. So let's go quickly through this solution of how UVC light can help. If you've attended one of the past webinars, then you've seen this before. And because I am starting to run towards the end of time here, I'm going to fly through. If you have questions, please use the Q&A module here to ask your questions, and I'll be very happy to dive in at the end with more information. So what we'll be talking about today is a sample classroom solution. Every facility will have a solution that's a little bit different and customized for your facility. But since we've all gone to school or have stepped inside of a classroom, we know what classrooms look like. So during the day, normal fixtures are on, nothing changes. At night, when no one is in the room, or if you would like to, let's say between 3rd and 5th period, 4th period is off, the fixtures that are in the room can be turned on to offer unintrusive disinfection. So this is what a sample classroom might look like. So you have your normal fixtures, and then you have 2 to 4 fixtures here. This is a sample drop ceiling, so they would be recessed right in the drop ceiling, and this would offer that comprehensive disinfection. Now, what does it look like? So UVC disinfection only occurs when the space is unoccupied. That is high priority, and with this UVC technology, that is non-negotiable. It takes approximately 1 to 3 hours per room for that full antiviral, antibacterial, antisporicidal, or spore solution. If you just want that germicidal and antiviral solution, it'll take 30 to 60 minutes. 2 to 4 fixtures per around a 1,000 square foot room. We do want to have a few different fixtures. That way we can go make sure that as much space is covered as possible with the intensity of light that's needed. We also have a slew of safety features. So we have sensors built into the fixtures that are able to detect movement right outside the range of the light. That means if movement is detected, the light turns off, stays off for a preset period of time before it kicks back on. There is custom programming that'll match your facility's needs and schedule. Manual override switches exist, so if you need to turn off or on the system for whatever reason, you can do that. They are password protected, so only authorized users can do that. Bluetooth access for authorized users, so same idea. The system can be turned on or off by users that have the password and that information. And then there are optional monitoring services where we can keep an eye to make sure that the system is operating as it needs to be. All of our safety features default to off, so if anything is not working the way it needs to, the system will turn off, you contact us, and we'll get back to you to be able to remedy that solution. And we won't talk too much more about this, but we do take in a lot of factors when we are providing our design services. So we need to make sure that the light that is at the furthest reaches of the fixture is still strong enough to have its efficacy. We make sure that the layout of the room, we can still get as much light as possible on it. We check the reflectance of the ceiling, the walls, the floors. So a lot of thought and engineering does go into each project and does go into our technology there. And what we offer is we do a full facility audit. So you provide us floor plans or emergency egress plans. Let us know what kind of facility and answer a brief questionnaire that we offer. And we will provide you with the proper design. So we provide the fixtures, where the fixtures need to be based on the room specific needs. We do the calculation and programming so that so we can tell you how long the fixtures need to be on for that full disinfection and program them so then that happens. Again, program commissioning by us. And then for your contracting team, or if you are a contractor, we help you out by providing room by room layout and wiring diagrams. So it makes your process incredibly easy, whether you're hiring a local contractor or again, you are a contractor looking to offer this solution to your clientele. We do rigorous testing of all of our technology and systems, making sure that the claims that we make are backed. And we have expert tech support and customer service and a no questions asked warranty process. We want your system to work. We don't want to make any headaches, and we want you to have the full confidence in your facility and hopefully in us. So again, a very simple warranty process, just in case something doesn't work as expected. This we mentioned before, and we'll go into it again. And just some pricing that is, for your own reference here. So small building, let's say an elementary school, the materials and design services and engineering, all of that combined comes out to be about $55,000. Remember, we said that light disinfection for about half the year in one classroom costs a little bit more than $10,000. So you could get a whole school for the price that it takes to do half a year's disinfection for 5 classrooms. Medium building, let's say a middle school, 125K, large, just shy of 200K. And for your reference, a classroom with 2 lights and a switch, the materials will cost around $2,100. We do have some clients that are putting in sample rooms just to test it out before they go for the whole thing. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out and we can furnish and supply that. So this is the way that we tend to close off all of our webinars, and it's important. We are entering a time where there is a new normal forming. And right now, it is all of our responsibilities to decide what that new normal is. We have an opportunity to create facilities that are safer, that are more confident, that function better for our occupants. We have opportunities here to make sure that our health is always taken as a high priority, that the health of others are taken as a high priority, that we actually care about our employees, and through that mutual care, we're able to do tremendous work. So being on this webinar, it does show that you are already a part of that new normal, and we really appreciate that. We are honored to be able to walk into this future together, side by side, and we hope that we'll be able to make tomorrow a much better society, much better facilities than yesterday.